Episode 5, let's fire it away. It's Dan Mathews. It's Matt Maltepes. It's Dan Mathews and the Animals, and aptly so, here if you're watching us on YouTube, you can see, well, I finally changed my name on the Chiron here. I'm now Dan Mathews, not the Animal. He, of course, is still Matt Maltepes. He is the Animal as we recap the action that was last weekend, an exciting week 2 in college football, Matt, and also too exciting for those who followed and played with us because it was a winning week if you did that here on Dan Mathews and the Animals. That is a good feeling. We love having winners around here. When we throw out those winners and you are able to profit from it as well, then it's a good feeling. And Matt, I got to believe for not only you, but for everybody in the crew, had to have been a good college football weekend all the way around for not only the games, but also, too, the results.
So, yeah, we actually went over in this Notre Dame game in the last show. Dan Mathews and the Animals. Last show, we went over Notre Dame. That hit. NC State beat this team on a third down conversion rate. Numbers, NC State 8 of 19 compared to 35% third down conversion rate from Notre Dame, but yet they still lost by 21 points. Turnovers, or more turnovers are going to kill you, right? That's exactly what happened. Wolfpack had 3 interceptions that led to 2 touchdown scores by Notre Dame and a turnover on downs that led to a touchdown score. That right there equals to 21 points they lost by. It's quite that simple. You don't turn over the ball, well, then you're going to be in the game more than not, and you're going to win and cover, right? You look at the QB of Brennan Armstrong. He played horrible for this Wolfpack team. 46% completion rate, 5.6 yards per pass, 3 interceptions. You won't win the game playing like that. And as much as I would love to blame the Wolfpack defense for letting up 45 points, especially for giving up 11 yards per pass, right? 170 yards on the ground. They're constantly, that's an easy scapegoat. They're constantly put on bad positions, right? So you can't put all the blame on them. From missed field goals to all the interceptions, they're constantly throwing fire, especially in that second half. Yeah, does the defense have to play better? Of course, but they aren't receiving any help to do so. So, yeah, that was a breakdown of this game. It was as simple as that. Turnovers led to the 21 points that they lost by.
Yeah, and Notre Dame covering it all by themselves as the over-under was 51 for this one. As you told the audience to take the 51 over, that hits because the Irish covered it themselves with even 3 points to spare as they won this one at 54-24. So again, over hitting in this one, even though, as you mentioned, sloppy game with the rainstorm that came through, the video board getting struck by lightning there during that weather delay that came through Raleigh. So there was that. But, Notre Dame this week, a little bit of a ho-hum game. The following week, we are going to have some real, just absolute heavyweight fights to be able to talk about. But that's going to be for episode, what is this going to be? I guess that will be episode 8 next week. So long tease for that one because that's going to be the rematch of Notre Dame, Ohio State from last year. This one going to be in South Bend. And at least the way that Irish offense looks early with Sam Hartman, a lot of belief in this Irish team going into that one. So still a long way to go before we get to that one. The one that didn't quite go our way, although it looked like it was trending that direction for much of the game until both the Canes and Aggies were both able to score a lot of late points in this one. That was number 22, Texas A&M, going on the road as a 4-point road favorite in losing to the Canes. Now, if you took the money line on the Canes on this one, remember I talked about it last week, you get that plus 150 to plus 180 right there. I almost kind of feel like the board is telling you, if you got the guts, why don't you live that life? And for those of you that took the Canes on the money line, you were rewarded handsomely for this one because the Canes win that one at 48-33. Like I said, we wanted the under because we thought that the weather that came through earlier in the day was going to be a factor. Ended up, sun came out, field dried up a little bit, so the offense was able to be very prolific in this game.
Yeah, if you had the cojones to bet the money line, you cashed out nicely. We went under in this game. Unfortunately, it did not go under. Ended up being a shootout. It's not what I expected. Weather wasn't as expected. Both teams put up a combined 884 total yards. Miami ended up winning the game by 15 points, 48-33, right? What's surprising is Texas A&M had 9 more first downs and went 44.4% on third down. Conversion rate compared to Hurricanes' 33.3% conversion rate. A&M also went for it on fourth down 3 times, converted twice. Miami's Tyler Van Dyke, however, was able to hit those chunk plays, averaging 12 yards per pass, which was double the amount of yards per pass that A&M averaged this game. Even so, though, I mean, you look at it, that wasn't the overwhelming problem, right? The overwhelming problem in this one was, once again, the turnovers. I don't know how many times I got to point this out to teams. And on every show, every recap, it comes to light, right? The team that turns over the ball more is going to lose more than not by a wide margin. Miami played a clean game, 0 turnovers, right? Meanwhile, A&M had 1 lost fumble, 2 interceptions. That not only took away scoring chances for A&M, but added 10 easy points to the Hurricanes. That right there is the difference between a 48-33 Hurricanes win and a 40-38 Texas A&M win. But Van Dyke showed us what he was this week, right? It was a great performance. Hats off to him.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Van Dyke was a guy that was thought of being a transfer portal considerate, a candidate, I guess is the more operative term here, as a lot of people were wondering if he was going to be Alabama bound this season, as we'll get into that game in just a second. But for the Canes, though, I mean, this is the game that fan base has been waiting for some time. They thought they were going to get it when Mark Richt was the coach. That ended up not being the case. Manny Diaz, the same deal. Now Mario Cristobal is here, and I said it the last episode, this is a game that Mario Cristobal needs to win in order to get people more on his side there in Coral Gables. That's a fan base, let's call it what it is. When it's rolling and it's great, people come out and they support the Canes, orange and green. But when they're losing and they haven't been great, they say, I'm not making the drive over from Miami, or maybe if you're in the Fort Lauderdale area, still, even though it's closer to me, I ain't going. But you win games like this, and I believe Florida State is in Miami Gardens this year. I'll have to look that up. But still, I mean, this is a Miami team now that I think probably with the recruiting they've been able to do these last couple of years, that now has people saying, okay, maybe we could be on the road back. So we'll see if indeed that is the case with the Canes. Do you have anything else on this game?
I had nothing else on this game. We just had the under, which got last.
Yeah, that's all right. That's all right. Look, it is one of those things. Sometimes the house wins, sometimes you win. And that's just the name of the game. You roll with it and you continue on to the next one. How about Texas at Alabama? Now, I don't think that this necessarily surprised a lot of people that Texas won this game, or in winning this game that they covered the 7 points, because a lot of people were riding Texas plus 7 in this one, even if they necessarily didn't think that they would win this game. But not only do they win this game, they cover the number. Even if they won by 1 point, they would have covered the number. But in this case right here, they win by 10. So that's pretty much a 17-point win by betting parlances, if you're going by that metric. But, I mean, you go into this one, too, as I got my notes in front of me right here, Matt. You had Alabama as a 7-point favorite. Now, this is one that the odds makers out there were telling you, we really dare you to bet this one, because if you do, then you're going to win huge, because the money line, at least when we recorded the show last week, was plus 240. And the over-under in this one, the over hits because the Horns win this one 34-24, because the over-under was 54 in a hook. Any necessary surprises in this one for you, Matt?
So my partner was on Texas, right? He was on Texas plus 7, Texas money line, upgraded move, actually. I was a little hesitant because I wasn't sure how Ewers was going to perform against a top defense like Alabama, right? Now, I did lean under in this game. I didn't touch it total, but I did lean under. It looked good early. As the game went on, somehow this game ended up getting more points scored and went over. So look at the game. Texas is a bit better on third down than Alabama, 39% conversion rate against Alabama's 36% conversion rate. Texas had more cojones in this one. They went for it 3 times on fourth down, converting 2 out of 3 times, whereas Alabama only went for it once. They were 1 of 1. 23 first downs for Texas compared to Alabama's 18. But I think the bottom line in this one was, like I said earlier, the question mark for me was Ewers, if he was going to perform. And he came through for the Longhorns, 24-38, 350 yards, and 0 interceptions. When you look at the other side of the ball, Alabama's Milroe, he ended up being who I thought he was. I mean, I talked about it in a video I released on Twitter at TCK_experience. I talked about this kid Milrow. He might have some turnover problems, and that's what happened in this game. Yeah, turnover issues, right? So I told you in the last podcast, my partner loved Texas. That came to fruition. Shout out to him. You never know when we're going to send out some free goals, so make sure to follow us on Twitter. Just FYI. But again, back to the point, Alabama turned over the ball twice while Texas only had one, and that was a turnover on downs. Ewers-led team actually won this game by more than 10 points. They missed a 40-yard field goal, so they probably should have won by 13. They made a point. They really made a point this week. They came in versus Standard in Alabama. Alabama defense, Saban, the top dog. They came in, and now guess what? Now they're in talks for making the playoffs and winning it all, right? They proved the point, and they did what they're supposed to do. And it wasn't just a win. It was a convincing win where they should have beat this Alabama team by 13 points.
Yeah, and you talk about the turnover differential too as well. I mean, 10 points off those turnovers for the Longhorns in this one. And, oh, by the way, they won the game by 10 points. So that was the difference in the game as Texas able to do that. And look, I mean, I think that this was a Texas team as well. As I was talking with friends of mine, of course, I am here in the Lone Star State. So a lot of my friends wear the burnt orange and white. And I said, that looked like those Mac Brown teams of the mid-2000s. Like, that looked like those teams you were like, oh, you're better. Like, you have the better players on the field. And I know that there is the clip making the rounds right now that I know Reggie Ragland, former Crimson Tide linebacker, said breaks his heart to see of a Texas offensive lineman absolutely bullying one of the Alabama defensive players. And of course, for the old school guys there that have been part of that Alabama program say, oh man, that can't be us. Like we cannot allow this to happen to us. But credit to Steve Sarkisian's team. They were the better coached. They were just the better team, I think, in that Saturday night. And while I took Texas +7, afterwards I said, look, if I lose this one, it's going to be yet again shame on me for doubting Nick Saban. But I think that almost too as well, Matt, that kind of that magic elixir that is Nick Saban is starting to kind of go by the wayside because you're starting to see other programs have really good players now. I mean, that was part of it as well, that Nick Saban was able to keep his coaches together. That has come to an end because coaches have been leaving to take their own head coaching jobs. And then also too as well, I just think that when you have, just a recruiting pie the way it is for all these 4- and 5-star guys, and you start getting Kirby Smart recruiting the way that he is, you start getting, I don't know, Brian Kelly recruiting the way that he is. I mean, even, Josh Heupel there at Tennessee. I mean, you get my drift here. You're starting to lose out on some of the guys that maybe you used to get that now, I mean, and even Steve Sarkisian too, and what Texas has been able to do these last few years on the recruiting trail. So there have been a lot of programs that have tried to find their Nick Saban, and now it seems like they're able to close the gap on Nick Saban as well.
I agree, man. You look at Alabama. I mean, look at the loss of Bryce Young. Milrow is not even close to Bryce Young. Wide receivers, they lack so much explosiveness. They still have a solid O-line. Defense still solid, although you're missing some guys. And they only have one projected first-round pick on offense, and it's on the O-line. So they're lacking a lot of serious talent at skill positions, particularly. And I think we're starting to see it.
Yeah, unproven talent too. I mean, I think that that's the other thing as well, is we've seen Nick Saban teams get better. We've seen Alabama teams that have lost that have been able to bounce back. We'll have to see if this is another one of those Nick Saban-led teams that can be able to run the table here and win 10 straight and get back to Atlanta for the SEC championship game and also give themselves an opportunity at making the Final Four of the college football playoff at the end of the season. Real quick here, this is one that you threw out as kind of a bonus to people, but I mean, immediately as soon as you said it, I said, oh, absolutely. We did have to sweat it out a little bit as Georgia was able to hit the under in this one. 45-3 win over Ball State last week in Athens. That was a game that with about 5 minutes left to go, I'm saying to myself, one of two things. Number one, for Georgia, when they got the football, it's me sitting in front of the TV here, Matt, saying, sit on the ball. Sit on the ball. Don't throw it. Don't break off any huge runs. Just sit on the ball. And they did, and their defense also able to hold. And when you got an under and you got to sweat it out, The prettiest formation that there is in football is the victory formation. Once I saw that in the final minute that Georgia got under center and was running that, I said, hey, let's go.
So, yeah, we went under 53, cashed. Georgia did what they do best in this game. They played defense, right? As expected, they're a 42-point favorite, and they destroyed this Ball State team by what? 42 points. Yeah, but the good part is that the under hit, like we said, under the total of 53. Georgia had this team beaten 31-0 at half, right? So the second half, what did they do? Thank God they took it a little easy on the Ball State team, and they cashed their under. They killed the clock second half. They took their win, and they're on to next week. So, I mean, that's how I originally, when I was handicapping the game, I thought it would be a slower second half, which thankfully it wasn't. They didn't run up the score. And, we ended up cashing the under.
Yeah, I mean, Kirby Smart is the perennial coach that says enough is enough when it comes to the way that the game is. And, I'm sure that there are some, which I've been told that there are certain coaches out there that Kirby Smart has on his list that if he has the chance to run it up, he will. But I don't think that Ball State made that list. I think he probably said, look, we got the conference slate coming up, which they got South Carolina this week. We've got a long season left to go here. Even though some people think our schedule might be light, this is not the one to try to empty the chamber on. So that is the way that Georgia plays it out. They win that one 45-3. That under covers in this game as the under was at 53 for this one. So a touchdown would have drained us. A field goal would have kept us still in it. We just would have had to sweat it out even a little bit more. All right, that's episode 5 of Dan Mathews and the Animals. We've got another slate of games coming up this week. I think it's going to have a heavy SEC flavor to this one as the SEC gets going in conference play. As Matt, I mean, any early looks going into this one, or are the boys going to be getting back in the lab?
Nothing yet. We're going to go back in the lab. We'll be back Thursday on Dan Mathews and the Animals to give you guys the goal.
I couldn't have said it better myself. Episode 5 is a wrap. Talk to y'all for episode 6 on Thursday.
See you guys.